Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Palmetto Sports Daily, the Hump Day edition. Rick Henry here in Columbia, and today joined by Teagan Brown in Myrtle Beach, Ella Grogan in Greenville, and Kevin Bilodeau in Charleston. The gang's all here, and we're going to talk some college football. It's the third week of the season, and the Gamecocks, after opening the season against Virginia Tech in Atlanta, a team that's probably going to be right at the bottom of the ACC, and South Carolina State, an FCS team. They're 2-0, but the Gamecocks haven't been all that impressive, especially when you consider they're a top 10 team. Now they start SEC play. They're hosting the Vanderbilt Commodores on Saturday, and the Gamecocks have had their way with the Commodores for like forever. They're 34 or 30-4 maybe, I think, all time against them. They've won 16 straight, and now they're taking on a Vanderbilt team that is looked at a little differently than the Vanderbilt teams of the past. They beat Alabama last year, and they're coming in with a lot of hype. Diego Pavia, a quarterback who gets a lot of things done. And so at Beamer's press conference yesterday, I asked them about the intensity. Like, you know, teams and coaches, they want to say, hey, you know, we approach every game the same way. But they admitted yesterday, when it's time to play SEC ball, the intensity wraps up. Let's hear from the Gamecocks.
It ramps up another level this week that the non-conference games are over, and the SEC is it's a different animal. It is. I don't have to say a whole lot, Rick. Our guys know, our leaders have made it, very clear that it's SEC play, and there's just a different feel and a different intensity. It is. I mean, it's just, I hate to, you want to say you treat them all the same, and you do, but everybody knows when it's an SEC game.
It's a different type of ball now, different tempo, everybody's good on the field now. It's not like we're playing a lower team no more. It's just everybody's good SEC play. Got to come prepared.
Is there a difference in intensity this week?
Yeah, obviously, because competition level, the intensity is greater, and you obviously want to win your conference and all that.
All right, so the Gamecocks, got to turn the intensity up. It's SEC time. You can't afford to stumble against a team that you're favored with, or you could put yourself in a bad way for the rest of the season. Kevin, your thoughts on the Gamecocks and their intensity this week?
Yeah, the big thing I'm looking at, Rick, is numbers-wise. I think you mentioned 30-4 against Vanderbilt, and it's 16 in a row that they've won. And at some point, once you get past that 10-in-a-row mark, you start to wonder, it's got to even out sooner or later. I mean, even a blind nut can find a squirrel every now and then. So that's not how it goes. Blind squirrel can find a nut. You know what I'm saying? But that's the chances Vanderbilt has had lately. And so at sooner or later, after 16 in a row, you got to think Vanderbilt has a shot of taking one of these, Teagan.
Yeah, sorry, I can't get over that great comment that you made about the squirrels. I think that South Carolina, no matter what we saw in those first two games, it isn't really the South Carolina team that we expected to see so far. And, they can talk about that level of intensity and how it's going to be higher this week because they're playing an SEC team. But I would have hoped that we would have seen more intensity in these previous two games, even though they weren't conference matchups, Ella.
Yeah, I got to agree with both of you. And Kevin, I'm going to try an analogy here. Straw that breaks the camel's back, if that's right. You got to wonder when that's going to happen, right? 16 years in a row. So when is it going to be? This is the year that it could be it. I mean, you got to hope that that's not the case. But, I mean, the way that Vandy is looking right now, coming off of a great season last year, and their quarterback, I heard in that press conference, Shane Beamer talking about how he is just going to be a force to be reckoned with and someone that they're going to really need to contain. Rick?
Okay, now we're going to talk about some communications issues that the Gamecocks are having, especially on the offensive side of the football, with the offensive line not clearly hearing the calls of quarterback Lenore Sellers or even the calls of the center, Boaz Stanley. Now, Shane Beamer is asking the crowd to be even louder this week. You got to give the USC fans credit. It was a driving rainstorm. There was some lightning, and the student section remained filled. Okay, probably not the brightest idea, but they did. And he wants them, to bring that same energy, bring more of it. But, if they're having trouble hearing at home, what's going to happen when they go to LSU, one of the loudest environments of all of college football? And here's what the Gamecocks had to say about those communications issues.
To be an effective offensive line, you have to play 5 as 1, any level of football, that's true. I think communication is probably our biggest thing right now. From Lenoris to Boaz and Boaz out. There were like 6 or 7 times that I saw in the game where we weren't really getting the calls, you know what I mean? It was like, I would have to ask, it's loud, you know what I mean? Like sometimes the band's really loud and all that stuff, you can't really hear that much, but we really need to be on the same page, especially at home.
I think it starts with just everyone being louder, Lenoris talking louder, Boaz talking louder as the center, making calls, and then us as coaches looking at, okay, if there's things that could be confusing, which I don't think there are. I mean, every offense in America has a lot of terminology and words that may sound alike, but we've certainly got to look at it and make sure that we're operating efficiently.
Yeah, to hear Case and Henry say that there were 6 or 7 times during the game where they weren't sure about the calls that were being made, that's a little concerning. Ella, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably not what you want to happen in Williams-Brice Stadium specifically. I mean, that place is loud, and you want to be able to be communicating with your quarterback. You can't have that lack of communication, or else, I mean, things are not going to happen, especially against a Vanderbilt team. That kind of, in my opinion, you mentioned the weather. It makes it obviously a little more challenging, but I'd be curious what the actual overall problem was there.
Is it really just as simple as they need to talk louder? Because that seems ridiculous to me after, being in training camp for more than a month and playing in the middle of your second game. It seems like Lenoris just talking louder and the line talking louder to each other. It seems like something that's something you work on during camp, is you pump in the noise to make sure they can deal with a situation like when they're in LSU or even when they're home playing against SC State. I'm a little worried that just them talking louder seems to be the theory that's what's going to solve everything, Teagan.
Yeah, I don't know if I completely buy that. I mean, they've been in loud stadiums. All of them have. Lenoris has already gone through a whole year of starting. He knows what it's like to be in a busy stadium like that. So the fact that they're saying, we just couldn't hear each other seems a little bit ridiculous to me. I think there's something else there. I think they've got to figure out another layer to this communication issue. So I don't know. We'll have to see if maybe next game it'll change, but Ella, I know that Clemson had a tough win against Troy over the weekend.
Oh, Teagan, I can't tell you how high my heart rate was on that one. That one made me a little scared there for a while. We also dealt with some weather delays out there, and interestingly enough, their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, told us after the game that he thinks that actually helped them. So going back into the locker room, getting to figure out what is going on out there, why are we performing like this? And so obviously that first quarter was rough. They were up on them, I think, by 16-3 going into halftime, and then they kind of flipped the switch. And Dabo Swinney kind of speaks on that game and how that has impacted them going forward and how it's kind of battle tested them. I mean, this is the 3rd largest comeback Clemson has ever made in history. So let's have a listen to what he had to say.
We're battle tested, but we got to get better. It just ain't no other. I mean, we continue like this, we ain't gonna win many games. I mean, we got to get in rhythm on offense. And we got plenty, we got the dudes. But we're doing a lot of good things, too. There's a lot of things that don't necessarily show up on the stat sheet that excite me as a coach, especially what I saw in the moment of last week. That was awesome. That's special.
Positivity that Dabo's bringing in there. And one of his favorite statements of all is, we got the dudes. But Rick, a year that they had the dudes was in 2016 when Clemson played Troy, and they only beat them by 6 points. So this is almost somewhat of a reoccurring pattern. What do you remember from that game? Because Dabo had some really interesting things to say about that as well. Feels like deja vu.
Yeah, that's going back, 9 years now? Clemson against Troy, and I have to admit, the only thing I remember about that game really is that Clemson won, and sometimes you see games like that, and like when you look at what happened to them on Saturday, could it be they were still suffering the effects of that season opening loss to LSU, and they came out a little flat. But sometimes you need a game like that to open your eyes and say, hey, look, we can't do this against teams that we are heavily favored against, because if we mess around and they get some turnovers, they get up on us, and there's no coming back. So I think, like in 2016, that game served as, hey, we can't be doing this. We got to get it turned around. Producer Nick?
Yeah. Producer Nick?
Yeah, I couldn't understand what Producer Nick was telling us. So, Producer Nick, break time? Yeah, it's break time. I'm sorry, Producer Nick. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. If there's one thing I took away from the Coastal Carolina game this weekend, a win is a win, because there's not a whole lot of other good things to say about Coastal's win over Charleston Southern. It was a 13-0 victory, which, again, it's a win, but Coastal went into it as a 28.5-point favorite. Charleston Southern was on an 11-game losing streak, and they were 0 for 28 against FBS teams. So if they had beat Coastal, it would have gotten rid of all of those crazy stats. Coastal Carolina once again led by MJ Morris, their quarterback, but Morris went 13 for 22 with 102 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. It was a really tough game to watch for him. They just couldn't move the ball at all. Not really, neither team could. They got those 3 points from a field goal in the first quarter, and then Coastal didn't get anything else until the fourth quarter. The defense did pretty decent, just trying to get their offense back on the field. But the offense just really couldn't get anything going. Head coach Tim Beck this morning talking about their quarterbacks and saying how, at the end of that game, they got Tad Hudson in there. He got them a touchdown with that 4-yard run, and maybe he's just the spark that Coastal needs going into their next game against ECU.
Yeah, I think he's done some good things. So we've been repping really all three of them. We've repped Tad, we've repped MJ. As I talk earlier all the time, not one player is necessarily at fault, right, when it comes to things, and there's a variety of things, but Tad did provide a spark. So the plan is to have both those guys ready to go, and Samari's obviously getting ready, because we never know where that may lead us as well.
And, I don't think that one player's at fault. I think a lot of the play calling was a lot of the issues that we saw in this game. Just a lot of decisions I didn't really understand from the coaching staff. I know that they're all new in terms of defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, just still trying to find that chemistry. But I think that Coastal really just needs to find their rhythm. I don't know if MJ Morris is part of that rhythm. I don't know if Tad Hudson is going to change it. We only saw him throw a couple of passes there in that last game, and then the only other time we've really seen him in terms of Coastal fans seeing him out on the field for Coastal was last year in the Myrtle Beach Bowl, and that was a tough loss there. So, Kevin, I know that you cover Charleston Southern. What did you kind of think of this game?
Yeah, it pretty much would have been a disaster for Coastal Carolina if Charleston Southern had been able to pull this one off. You mentioned never beaten an FBS team before, on an 11-game losing streak, having won dating back to week 2 of last season when they went on the road and upset Furman. Gabe Gardenia talked about that a little while ago in his press conference today. But I wanted to say to you, Teagan, I think you buried the lead in this game, because I think the lead is that 27,000 hot dogs were served in the free hot dog giveaway.
Oh my gosh,
you're
right. How did I forget? Yes. Sorry, guys. I've been sick the past 2 days. I forgot that I have not gotten to talk about the concessions. It's crazy. 27,000 hot dogs. I know that 7,000 student tickets were claimed. I don't really know the balance of how many people claimed all those hot dogs. But yeah, definitely crazy. They didn't run out though, so they were prepared, guys.
We're talking about a
That's
4-to-1
literally
hot
all you
dog
can
to
ask
person
for.
ratio.
Hey, one of our producers, one of our producers is a season ticket holder with the Gamecocks. he gave up his tickets for last Saturday's game to go down to Coastal and try out all those concessions.
Oh, no way.
He said the food lines weren't that long, but like the table where they had the condiments, oh, forget it. You know, that was a mess. So I asked him, I said, hey, was it worth it? He goes, yeah, extremely. He was very satisfied. He had hot dog, nachos, popcorns, and a drink. Yeah, so.
Yeah,
props to
I
Coastal.
was just impressed. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was impressed, honestly, that as many people stayed for the amount of time that they did. It was the fourth quarter, and it was a brutal watch offensively. Nothing was really happening. And fourth quarter, there was still a really good amount of people there. And whether that was just the food getting them to stay or the fact that it was just the home opener, I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but I was impressed by that. I think producer Nick is telling me we have to get to our next topic. Is that right? Yes? All right. Kevin, we're going to the Citadel, right? Oh, just kidding. We're going to go to break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. Now, the latest AP poll came out Sunday afternoon. It saw South Carolina fall down to 11th, Clemson fall down to 12th. And no one really batted an eye when they saw Florida fell all the way out of the poll after their home loss to South Florida on Saturday. But when we took a closer look at the voting, somebody noticed that one voter in particular actually had Florida go up 2 spots in the poll to number 14 in the country after their loss to South Florida. And everyone's kind of been looking into why someone would do this, and they found out who the voter was, and it's been a whole brouhaha online. So, guys, I wanted to kind of go around the horn here and get opinions from you. And I'll start with you, Teagan. Thoughts on this one particular voter? Is it just a situation where she wasn't paying attention, or she's got some weird algorithm she's going by? Just your thoughts on what this means for the AP poll.
I think that there are 2 ways that this could have gone here. One, they didn't do their research, because why are they putting Florida in that spot if they didn't, watch the game, look at the highlights, do the research that you should be honored to do because you're an AP voter. There are so few people who get to call themselves an AP voter. And I would be honored if I had that opportunity. I would want to do the research. I would put all the hours in. So that's the one thing that I think could have happened. The other is that there's a Florida bias. Like, maybe they're just a really big Florida fan and they let that slip in. I don't know. I just don't see logically in an educated way where you could put Florida in the spot that this voter did. Ella?
I could not agree with you more on that. I mean, like you said, it's such a prestigious honor to get to vote for this. I mean, to be an AP poll voter is one of the highest honors that you could have. I'm genuinely wondering if maybe she just put in her votes before and just assumed that Florida pulled off this win. I mean, as a Floridian, I was quite shocked myself. However, but like you said, you want to honor that role that you have to make that vote, and this was just an unfortunate situation where, I mean, you got to just be disappointed overall. To give my mom's speech, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Rick?
Okay, so this was a Southern Cal beat writer, and when you're covering a team every week, like with me, I'm normally attending South Carolina games. I keep my eye on Clemson, other teams around the SEC and ACC. And obviously, she wasn't aware of what happened in that game. She couldn't have been if she takes this job seriously. Didn't do the research, so I think she should lose her vote. I mean, and to bump them up 2 spots, unacceptable.
Yeah, here's the thing, guys. I don't care about the mistake in and of itself. Mistakes are going to happen. I'm a complete moron. I can't believe people put me on live television and let me talk anytime, in any point, any time. But the fact that she made the vote, she could have come out and said afterwards, I made a mistake. I screwed up. I put it in early. I thought Florida was going to win. She could have done that, and nobody would be talking about this today. Instead, she goes on a podcast and says, I'm not going to divulge what my my way of coming up with the votes is. I'm going to just keep it to myself and let you guys not have any of these answers. That's the stupid part. It's the reaction to how these votes come down that makes her look like a moron. So that's my thing. Just say you made a mistake. If you say you make a mistake, it's going to roll off everyone's back and nobody's going to think anything twice of it. And with that, I'm going to take us to break. We'll be back right after this.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We've been talking college football quite a bit and talk about slow starts all across the South Carolina state. I got to ask you guys, who should be more concerned? Let's go around the horn. South Carolina or Clemson with these slow starts that we've been seeing? Kevin, I'll start with you.
Well, right now it should be Clemson. They've already got one in the loss column and what should have probably been another one in the loss column, and both of those games were played at home. So as they start conference play this week, South Carolina, despite the problems they've had, they're still 2-0 as they get ready to go into conference play this week, Teagan.
Yeah, I'd have to agree and say Clemson. I mean, we talked after the LSU loss about, that one doesn't matter a whole ton. We still think that they're a team worthy of making the playoffs, worthy of doing this and that. But at this point, after the Troy game, I kind of have to go back on my thoughts after that. Now I'm concerned. Rick?
It's got to be South Carolina. 6 of their next 7 opponents are ranked, while Clemson, they only have one ranked opponent before they play South Carolina at the end of the season.
And guys, I'm going to go ahead and take Australia position here and say I don't think either of them need to be all that concerned. I'm hoping that everyone just has the yips and we can get back into our regular season play and see these teams play the way that they're supposed to. But for now, we're going to end this edition of Palmetto Sports Daily. Have a great day, everyone.